All right, I've just got a couple of examples of simplifying rational division expressions. I'll start with a fairly simple one. Not that any of this is easy, but just kind of a more basic example, and then I'll move to a more advanced example. So with this problem, lots of stuff is happening here. Pause the video and see if you can solve it. But the first thing I would do is get rid of this division. Not sure why it crossed like that. That went crazy. But with division of fractions, you flip and multiply, just like you've always done. So this is 15p cubed over 9p squared. You could simplify that first if you wanted to, but I like to do this just because it's, I guess, what I'm practiced or trained to do. That's how I've always done it. So that'd be times 10p squared over 6p. Then go ahead and simplify. Anything on top can be simplified with anything on the bottom. You could multiply these straight across, but I don't want to do that. I'll simplify it instead. That's a cubed. I erased my little problem. There's a 10. They almost disappeared on me. So 9 and 15, if you take a 3 out, that's 5 and 3. P squared and p cubed, that's p to the first power. P and p squared, that's p to the first power. 6 and 10 is 3 and 5 if you take a 2 out. And nothing else simplifies. I mean, you could look across and I don't see anything. So now you can just multiply straight across. Well, 5 times 5 is 25. P squared, there's 2 of them left, over 3 times 3 is 9. And voila, it's done. So there's your simplified expression for that particular problem, 25p squared over 9. Okay, so now that you've mastered that one, let's give one other a try that's maybe a little more, involves some factoring, things like that. So hit pause, see if you can solve it, and then I'll simplify it for you. The one thing that you'll do on this that that aggravates me is, and any math teacher, you'll start crossing these out because it's 4a and 2a. Well, you can't do that because they've got to be factors. So you can't have them crosses there. You'd have to have multiplication. So what you do is you factor it to make multiplication. And so you factor each piece separately. But again, the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this division sign and flip and multiply. So this should be a squared minus a minus 20 over a squared minus 9. This up here is 4a plus 12 over 2a minus 10. And we're going to change that to multiplication. Now, what you do is you factor each piece separately. So the 4a plus 12, if you notice, you could take a 4 out of that. And you're left with a plus 3. On this bottom here, you could take a 2 out of that. If you take a 2 out, you'd have a minus 5 times. Now, a squared minus a minus 20. Again, I'm going to factor this kind of quickly, but you might try some factoring methods and play around with it a little bit, but I'm just going to use my kind of memorized guess and check method. Minus minus is a minus plus. A squared here breaks into a and a. 20 breaks into 5 and 4. You could use 10 and 2. But we're looking for a negative 1a, and 5 and 4 is the only one that would do that. And now I know the 5 would go with the negative, and the 4 would go with the positive. And if you check it, that'd be 5a, negative 5a plus 4a, which is negative 1a. Let me get rid of those two lines. Don't need them cluttering things up. Okay, so then you do the bottom. A squared minus 9, that's difference of squares. Just things that as you practice this, you'll start to recognize them. So that would be a minus 3, a plus 3. Now notice you have a whole bunch of multiplication problems, or expressions. 4 is times a plus 3 is times a minus 5 is times a plus 4. So it's all multiplication. So as long as you cross out everything by groups, you're okay. And same on the bottom. Well, if you notice, you've got an a plus 3 here that's the same. Well, if you divide a plus 3 divided by a plus 3, it crosses out. If you notice, you've got an a minus 5 divided by an a minus 5, which would also be 1. You've also got this 2 and this 4 here. So that's 2 and that's 1. Because 4 divided by 2 is 2. And I think that's it. That is it. So on the top, we've got a 2 left and an a plus 4. And on the bottom, you got a 1 left. We're just going to ignore it and assume it's there, which it is, and a minus 3. Now again, you might be tempted to cross these two a's out, but you can't. This is your final answer. This is as simple as you can make that expression. So that's just a couple quick examples. I hope it helps, and see you next time.